what Gary Myers said yesterday with Maz and Ted was that he spoke to Bill going back a couple of years, and we'll play the clip for you, Phil. And Bill seemed to indicate he didn't want to start over in the front office somewhere. He didn't want to have to build out a front office if he ever went elsewhere. Here it is.
I think he'll get traded after the season. There's no way a businessman like Kraft is just going to let Belichick leave. He's not going to fire him. He's not going to make him go through the indignity of that. And I think, as I've said all along, I think the Chargers are clearly the number one possibility. You know, I had written a column the year before that perhaps this is the time to come back to the Giants. I think it was right after Seth Wickersham had written that long piece on ESPN about some of the friction in the organization. And I said, would you ever consider that? And he said to me, I can't go to a place where I got to rebuild the entire front office. I can't do that at this point in my life. So I think you can probably apply that to what his thought process would be on whatever his next step is.
Okay. Can't do that again.
I love this comment. Because to me, it indicates that Bill Belichick really cares about the team building side of it. And to me, it's an indication of, and I don't know where he stands now, I think this conversation with Myers was 3 years ago. Right?
Yeah, it was.
So maybe his mind has changed since then, but at the time, Bill Belichick still saw himself as both a head coach and a general manager. Is he going to be hell-bent on having both of those titles wherever he ends up next?
And is part of that thinking, too, off, he's always said, I didn't want to do what Bill Parcells did, where he would leave a place and sort of leave it a mess.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like to where, I mean, if I'm going there, I know it's going to be brief, but then you got to reconstruct the whole front office, and I have no clue what the team's going to look like. Like you have more control.
Yeah.
Well, when you have your people in, to where Bill's been in it for 20 plus years when he made these comments to Gary.
And maybe there are enough folks that he has a relationship with who understands the Bill Belichick way of doing things in the front office that rebuilding it, quote unquote, wouldn't take very long. I mean, if he goes and gets John Robinson or Dave Ziegler, who's now available, and inserts one of those guys at the top and maybe even another one, a second guy who's also available as his number two, and you teach the scouts the system, I think that's what he's talking about.
So they're both getting paid.
Rebuilding the front office means teaching a grading system, teaching a philosophy. What are we looking for in players, not only in free agency, but in the draft? And that would take some time. And so I get what he's saying there. I bet he's not interested in a rebuild on the sidelines either, or on the roster either. It's not just the front office. He wants to go somewhere. Why is he still coaching? He's still coaching because he wants to win games, correct? Yes. Are we all under that assumption?
Yes.
Where is he going to win games next year? Because it's not happening in Washington, Carolina, or Chicago. I don't think. I think it's happening.
Chicago's interesting too, Phil. You bring that up, but I do. We talked about this earlier. I think this takes Washington and Carolina out of the picture.
I think the Chargers would right now, as things stand right now, give Bill Belichick the best chance to win next year. And maybe if all goes well, have a shot at making a run to a Super Bowl.